सम्पदाको आचल वीरहरूका रगतले स्वतन्त्र अचल ज्ञान भूमि शान्ति भूमि तराई पहाड हिमाल अखण्ड यो प्यारो हाम्रो मातृभूमि नेपाल बहुल जाति भाषा धर्म संस्कृति छन् विशाल अग्रगामी राष्ट्र हाम्रो जय जय नेपाल।
Thank you, everyone. Signifying the official inauguration of today's ceremony and the summit, I'd like to request our chief guest, Honorable Mr. Gyanendra Bahadur Karki, Minister of Finance, Government of Nepal, to kindly light the lamp. Good evening, distinguished dignitaries, honorable ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th South Asia Economic Summit with the theme Deepening Economic Integration for Inclusive and Sustainable Development in South Asia. The organizers of the summit are National Planning Commission, Government of Nepal, the Ministry of Commerce, Government of Nepal, and South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment, SAES. SAES is a think tank engaged in policy research, advocacy, and capacity building. For over 2 decades now, it has worked extensively around issues concerning regional cooperation and integration. Going back, the first South Asia Economic Summit was held in Colombo, Sri Lanka on August 2008 with the theme Economic Integration in South Asia, SAFTA and Beyond. And the 9th summit was held in Dhaka, Bangladesh, October 2016 with the theme Reimagining South Asia in 2030. And here we are today for the 10th edition of the summit. For the welcome and introductory address, I would like to invite Dr. Posh Raj Pandey, Chairman, South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment, Nepal.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Mr. Gyanendra Bahadur Karki, Finance Minister, Government of Nepal, Honorable Min Bahadur Vishwakarma, Minister for Commerce, Government of Nepal, Honorable Mr. Leonpo Lekhi Dorje, Minister for Economic Affairs, Government of Bhutan, Honorable Mr. Abdul Latif Mohammed, Minister of State for Economic Development, Government of Maldives, friends from media, excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of the organizer of 10th South Asia Economic Summit, namely National Planning Commission and Ministry of Commerce, Government of Nepal, and South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment, SAES, We are grateful to your gracious presence. South Asia Economic Summit was launched in 2008 by South Asian think tanks as a premier regional platform with an objective of deliberating, discussing, debating, and discoursing economic and development issues and challenges of South Asian countries. It has always worked to advance the cause of regional cooperation and integration in South Asia. 5 South Asian think tanks: Center for Policy Dialogue, Bangladesh, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS, India, South Asia Was and Trade Economics and Environment, Saudi, Nepal, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, Pakistan, and Institute of Policy Studies, IPS, Sri Lanka, host South Asia Economic Summit annually on a rotational basis. We believe that regional economic cooperation and integration brings transformative change, powers trade and economic growth, supports investment and competitiveness, and offers great potential to eliminate poverty and achieve inclusive and sustainable development. Well, let me demystify some of the oft-quoted statements on South Asian economic integration. South Asia is the least integrated region with low regional trade of 5.9%. Here we need to note that intra-regional trade was 5.6% in 2006, the year of implementation of SAFTA. Increased intra-regional trade from 5.6 to 6.9, although it's marginal, it implies that intra-regional trade has been expanding at a higher rate than extra-regional trade. In absolute term, SAARC trade has increased by 2.3 times in 2016 compared to 2006, from $10 billion to more than $23 billion, more than 23 billion. Similarly, it is often said that South Asia is home to over 300 million people living on less than $1.90 per day. But we should not forget that South Asia had been the fastest growing region in the world since the second quarter of 2014. In the first quarter of 2016, regional growth had even reached a record high of 9.1%. South Asia is pioneer and leader in microfinance, community forest management, cooperative movements, and other social entrepreneurship, which directly address deprivation and exclusion. The regional integration and cooperation in South Asia has not been a linear process. It has been an evolutionary path marked by ups and downs, and the achievement should be assessed in terms of cumulative progress or incremental, not at marginal level. Head of state and government have been exchanging shared perception and goals. We have signed South Asia Free Trade Agreement, SAARC Agreement on Trade and Services, SAARC Framework Agreement for Energy Cooperation. We have established SAARC Development Fund. We have taken initiative on food security, health and nutrition, climate change, disaster management, and trade facilitation. Having said this, we have many unfinished agenda. We need to accelerate the process of creating free trade in goods and services in the region through adoption of simplified, transparent, and facilitative rules of origin, implementation of trade facilitation measure, elimination of non-tariff and para-tariff barriers, smooth and efficient transit and transport facilities. We should reduce the number of goods in sensitive list, conclude service sector negotiation, and investment promotion agreement. We must strengthen the social window of SAARC Development Fund and activate and fortify its economic and infrastructure windows. We must cooperate to modernize, sustainably intensify, and enhance productivity of agriculture to ensure food and nutrition security in the region. We must effectively implement SAARC Declaration on Climate Change, SAARC Agreement on Rapid Response to Natural Disasters, and SAARC Convention on Cooperation on Environment. A galaxy of experts and key policy leaders are here with us to discuss this issue in the next couple of days in 4 plenary and 14 parallel sessions. I wish very productive deliberation in these sessions. I also welcome all of you who are hooked with us in the webcasting of this event. Once again, warm welcome and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you for your welcome remarks, Dr. Poshraj Pandey, and we definitely hope that this summit will also bring fruitful results. And now to move ahead and request for special remarks, I would like to request Honorable Mr. Lenpo Leki Dorji, Minister of Economic Affairs, Government of Bhutan, for his special remarks.
Your Excellency, the Finance Minister, Government of the Republic of Nepal, Your Excellency, Minister for Commerce, Government of the Republic of Nepal, Your Excellency, Minister of State for Economic Development, Government of Maldives, Honorable Members of Parliament, Dr. Poshraj Pradhan, Chairman of South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment, Dr. Somin Wagli, Chairman of National Planning Commission of Nepal, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to be amongst friends and neighbors today. At the outset, let me take this opportunity to thank the Government of the Republic of Nepal, the organizers South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Development, the National Planning Commission of Nepal for organizing this very important 10th South Asia Economic Summit. I would like to especially thank His Excellency Min Bahadur Bishwakarma, the Minister of Commerce, Government of the Republic of Nepal, for inviting me and for the excellent arrangement for my delegation. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our region, the South Asia, has made significant achievements in the economic integration since the inception of SAARC in 1985. However, much still remains to be done. Despite the steady progress towards trade liberalization through progressive tariff reduction, other trade costs arising from inadequate infrastructure and cumbersome regulatory environment have become a significant bottleneck. Many studies show our region to be the least integrated region of the world, with inter-regional trade accounting for less than 5% of total trade, the statistics the chairman just mentioned. And that 5% trade is against 35% for East Asia and 60% for Europe. Besides the low level of regional integration trade, the trade among the countries in the region is unequally distributed, both in terms of volume of trade and the balance of trade. This level of low economic integration in the region continues on account of the following: high level of protectionism, high costs of transportation, ambiguous customs procedures, and poor infrastructure and communication linkages. I'm highlighting these challenges not with disappointment, but with the hope and realization that if these are addressed, ours could be a region of economic prosperity, since South Asia offers the brightest spot for growth, hope, and optimism not only for ourselves, but for the world at large. South Asia is home to 1.7 billion people, and over the past 20 years, the economic growth has averaged over 6% against a mere 0.9% for Europe and 4.2% for East Asia. Our natural environment is a source of food and natural resources, and our geography is ideal for trade. The ever-increasing regional economic cooperation amongst the countries and regions around the world is a confirmation of the mutual benefits that arises from shared synergies. It is this hunt for a common goal of shared prosperity and mutual benefits that has brought all of us together here today. With every passing such gathering, we must strive to support each other and take the existing economic relations to the next higher platform. Such summit must be used to discuss the opportunities and challenges our region's prosperity, and we must focus on concrete approaches for enhancing regional economic integration to accelerate inclusive, sustainable, and resilient development in the region. With increased cooperation and better resource sharing, I have no doubt that ours can still be one of the fastest growing and an economically dynamic region in the world. To realize these visions, a greater regional economic integration in South Asia is an important strategy to address many of the challenges that persist and to ensure the sustainable future of the region as a whole. It may not only increase inter-regional trade, but also promote investments in the region's supply chain and production networks. This creates more and better jobs and builds productive capacity, particularly in the region's least developed countries, and can also improve food and energy security, as well as help reduce risks of disaster. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I think the region could start with cooperation in two important, basic, and broad areas. Number one, cooperation in energy sharing. Number two, cooperation in movement of goods and services. The great Himalayan ranges of the region have huge hydropower potential, estimated at 325,000 megawatt. However, only less than 20% of it has been harnessed. The hydropower potential remains untapped despite all major countries, with the exception of a very few being power deficient and the demand for power exceeding supply. Therefore, a greater stride towards cooperation amongst member states in energy and its trading must be pursued to take advantage of the complementarities our countries offer. A study undertaken by the Asian Development Bank estimates a total benefits of over $4 billion annually for the whole region from enhanced energy trade. Signing of the SAES Framework Agreement for Energy Cooperation in 2014 has laid the foundation for trade in energy. However, the progress since then has been excruciatingly slow. For the agreement to come to fruition as envisioned, all of us must commit to adopt commensurate policies and address the incompatibility issues in legal and regulatory framework as a region multilaterally and must not be left to just bilateral trading. To improve seamless flow of goods and services amongst the SAARC countries, the following 5 measures needs to be considered. Number 1, improving regional trade facilitation at borders through simplified and transparent rules of origin, harmonization of customs procedures, smooth and efficient transit and transport facilities. Number 2, infrastructure development. Developing physical infrastructure and improving connectivity are essential for the South Asian countries. Our poor state of infrastructure is a major constraint in the expansion of inter-regional trade flows. Number 3, effective implementation of SAFTA state liberalization program. The scaling down of tariff and non-tariff barriers to remove the last mile challenge is important for realization of our potential. Number 4, improving connectivity to promote and increase economic integration, and immediate prospects arise for cooperation in transport and communications to ease the flow of goods, services, and investments. Number 5, promoting private sector growth, the most important catalyst for the South Asian countries. Without growth, nothing is possible, and with growth, everything is. Governments can help to create right environment, but it is the private sector that makes it happen. Governments generally do not create wealth. Businesses and individuals do. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, strengthening and better integration will only happen if all members of the region have a common understanding towards enhancing regional trade and address the problems that are creating barriers to free trade. We also need to focus on structural transformation for inclusive and sustained growth. This will help to scale up and diversify products and participate in global value chains. In order to realize this goal, we should explore strategic approach to link up to global value chains to upgrade regions' productive capacities through the development of our private sector. Private sector development and increased regional investment can be possible through better regional economic integration in the region. The role of private sector needs to be enhanced in South Asia, as it has potential to provide jobs, to foster economic diversification, and achieve more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable economic development. There are numerous potentials for investments in the sectors like hydropower, tourism, agriculture, cottage and small industries, education, information technology, and construction, among others, in the region. Economic development in the region will certainly benefit all of us in terms of gaining access to competitively priced inputs of products or services, which in turn will help countries to be able to use their resources efficiently and develop their economic base. Therefore, it is important we understand these trickle-down effects of development in the region and look upon each other as triggers for economic development rather than as competitors. Therefore, we need to bring all our trade and investment liberalization initiatives to their logical conclusion by removing all barriers. I also hope that regional initiatives such as BBN Motor Vehicle Agreement and its implementation, and also BIMSTEC arrangements would help in furthering regional integration of our economies. Lastly, I would like to mention that the countries in the region deserve special support to improve their supply-side capacity, focusing on trade facilitation, improved market access, and technical cooperation. I would also like to underline that the economic benefits resulting from our combined efforts to reach in an equitable manner to the needy people of our region, so that no one in our region is left behind. Finally, I wish the 10th South Asia Economic Summit a grand success. Thank you, and Tashi Delek.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lenpo Lekhi Dorji, Minister of Economic Affairs, Government of Bhutan. And now it is my honor to invite Honorable Mr. Abdul Latif Mohammed, Minister of State for Economic Development, Government of Maldives, for his special remarks.
Minister of Finance, Government of Nepal, His Excellency Gyanendra Bahadur Karki, Minister of Commerce, His Excellency Min Bahadur Biswakarma, Ministers from Bhutan, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here at this eminent gathering of the 10th South Asian Economic Summit, organized jointly in collaboration with National Planning Commission and Ministry of Commerce of the Government of Nepal and South Asia Watch on Trade, Economics and Environment. On behalf of the people and government of Maldives, I would like to extend warm greetings to all of you present here today. At the outset, I would like to also thank the organizers of the summit, in particular the government of Nepal, for the warm hospitality extended to me and my delegation, for the fine arrangements made for the summit. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this year's summit is on deepening economic integration for inclusive and sustainable development in South Asia. Looking at the agenda for this year's summit, the topics selected for deliberation ranges from deepening international trade, SDGs, e-trade, trade facilitation, connectivity, labor migration, climate change, and many more, which are very important to all of us. These are all important topics to collectively deliberate on in the context of regional integration and sustainable development. I am confident that 3 days of discussions among policymakers, parliamentarians, practitioners, researchers, and academics will generate healthy debate and dialogue to carve out a way forward or put forth recommendations that are pragmatic, doable, and achievable in South Asian context. Ladies and gentlemen, a number of assessments done in the past indicates that the potential for regional and sub-regional integration is quite significant, and that deeper integration can lead to win-win outcomes at national and regional level. Some of the assessments include the most recently formulated SASEC Vision and Operational Plans and SARC Study on Regional Economic Integration, both developed with Asian Development Bank assistance. Effective implementation of the SAFTA and SATIS agreement will go a long way in liberalizing and opening up the vast market for intra-regional trade. As a region, we have to find a way in moving forward. Maldives is committed to the process of regional integration. The government of Maldives is pursuing a number of reform initiatives to diversify its economic base to facilitate inclusive and sustainable development. Under the visionary leadership of His Excellency President Yamin Abdul Gayoom, Maldives' economy is transforming and developing in a speed more than ever before. More women are engaging in economic activities. SMEs are given financial support by the government. Under the reform initiatives, the government encourages foreign investments in non-traditional sectors, and a number of sectors remain open for investments. A number of South Asian investments are already in the Maldives in key sectors such as tourism, banking and finance, and real estate. To improve our connectivity with the region, the government of Maldives is investing in the expansion of the main airport in Malé and looking further for investors to expand the Malé port facility. Being a sea-locked country, transport connectivity via air and sea is an important dimension that we have to address to achieve our development objectives. Tourism, as you all know, is the main driver of the Maldivian economy. Improved air connectivity in the region and linking with the growing strong regional consumer base will definitely enable Maldives to integrate more effectively into the regional value chains. More, I believe, could be done regionally on the tourism front, and the potential of tourism sector's contribution towards poverty alleviation and sustainable development is well documented. With improved travel and transport connectivity, there is much room to expand trade in intra-regional trade in goods. Removal of tariff barriers alone is not sufficient to increase the intensity of trade. More needs to be done on reducing non-tariff barriers to facilitate and accelerate trade in goods within the member states. People-to-people exchanges are quite significant, with a large proportion of Maldivian labor force making up of migrant workers originating from this region. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Maldives is committed to implementing socio-economic reform programs that would aid country to better integrate with South Asia region. We would like to reaffirm our commitment to the SAARC process. Before I conclude, let me once again thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to address this August gathering and for the warm hospitality provided. I am confident that we will have a very productive discussions, dialogues, and exchanges of ideas, generating constructive and pragmatic recommendations that would aid member states in carrying forward the regional integration and the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. Before conclusion, finally, I would like to request all of you at least to visit Maldives on your future, any one of your anniversaries, and I'm sure that you would carry this as a lifelong memory. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the remarks and the warm invitation, Honorable Minister of State for Economic Development, Government of Maldives. And now for the special remarks, I'd like to invite Honorable Mr. Meen Bahadur Vishwakarma, Minister for Commerce, Government of Nepal.
Mr. Chairperson, Chief Guest Honorable Finance Minister Gyanendra Bahadur Karki, Honorable Likit Dorji, Minister for Economic Affairs Bhutan, Honorable Abdul Lafi Mohammed, Minister of State of Economic Development Maldives, Honorable Dr. Swarnim Awagli, Vice Chairman, National Planning Commission, Excellencies, distinguished scholars, researchers, and representatives from different institutions of South Asia. Government officials, distinguished representatives from various communities, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome and pay my greetings, namaskar, and good afternoon. I feel greatly honored and privileged to deliver at the opening ceremony of 10th South Asia Economic Summit, being jointly organized by National Planning Commission, Nepal, and Ministry of Commerce in collaboration with South Asia, was on trade, economics, and environment, Swati. At the outset, I express my utmost gratitude to the Honorable Finance Minister for this kind presence at the ceremony. I also wish to take this opportunity to extend my profound appreciation to Honorable Minister and State Ministers from Bhutan and Maldives respectively, and other distinguished personalities from the South Asian region for their gracious presence to make this summit a special one. I also highly commend Dr. Swarnim Awagli and his entire team at the NPC and Dr. Posraj Pandey at these colleagues at Swati for putting their sincere effort to organize this wonderful summit in Kathmandu up to this mark. As we all know, this is a great confluence of distinguished personalities, senior politicians, and policymakers, eminent academicians, researchers, and thinkers from South Asia. Before I proceed, allow me to extend my hearty welcome and gratitude again to you all in this August gathering. Launched in 2008, the South Asia Economic Summit, SAES, is an important regional platform for discussing and analyzing economic trade and development issues, opportunities, and challenges being faced by South Asian countries and advancing good cause of regional harmony, integration, cooperation, and partnership among SAARC nations. Nepal is proud of hosting this unique event, second time after hosting the third SAES summit successfully in 2010 in Kathmandu. This year's theme, Deepening Economic Integration for Inclusive and Sustainable Development in South Asia, seems to be timely and very present. This is because time has asked us to intensify our effort to integrate all countries in South Asia into a common trade and move ahead towards everlasting peace, common prosperity, and inclusive growth. As we embark on our collective journey towards materializing Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, by 2030, this year's theme encourages us to reflect on our development strategies and program and to fine-tune them in line with the SDGs. Of course, inclusive and sustainable goals are our common aspirations. Achieving these mighty goals require collective understandings, collective determination, and finally, collectively concerned actions on the ground, both at regional and global level. As highlighted in the SAARC Charter and reaffirmed in the declaration of the 18th SAARC Summit held in Kathmandu in November 2014, inter alia, improved trade and investment and connectivity are the key elements that help South Asian countries propel to a robust economy, partnership, and market integration. It is needless to say that these are preconditions for our common goals of overall socio-economic development. Indeed, ensuring the welfare and quality of life of the peoples of South Asia by achieving a secure, dignified, and meaningful life within a short span of time is our overarching goal for what we are working together since more than 3 decades. In pursuit of these lofty goals, we have collectively made some progress in getting large number of people out from the various poverty trap. Yet we must confess that the achievements so far made are not sufficient to meet our desired goal. It is very disheartening to note that South Asia still remains for the most poverty-stricken and diffident area in the world. Even in 21st century, to our distress, South Asia has been synonyms of poverty, vulnerability, inequalities, and development deficiency. However, this subcontinent has been one of the largest markets in the globe. This irony now needs to be reversed, and for that we need to strengthen partnership, cooperation, collaboration, and mutual understanding among ourselves. According to the World Bank report 2016, of the 766 million extremely poor people who live below the poverty line of USD 1.9 a day, South Asia alone was 33% poor. Besides, SAARC countries' share in old import and export is limited to just 3% and 2.1% respectively. Intra-SAARC trade has decreased by 6.4% and come down to USD 22.8 billion in 2016 from USD, 23.49 billion in 2014. They do represent bleak side of our face. On the bright side, we are reached as having young population and they are vibrant skill and efficiency-wise. However, success does not come automatically. Despite several commitments, South Asia still remains as the least integrated and least connected region in the world. Against this backdrop, if we really wish to be a prosperous region, if we are really serious about getting out millions of our brothers and sisters from the muddy trains of poverty, and if we really wish them to offer a secure, dignified, and promising life, we need to accelerate our pace. We need to deepen our economic integration and cooperation. We need to dismantle our trade barriers, either they are tariff, non-tariff, or para-tariff in nature. We need to enhance our connectivity, and we need to increase our cross-border flows of goods, service, capitals, technology, and people. Without making such headways, we cannot overcome our poverty, and we cannot attain the ultimate goal of becoming South Asian Economic Union. No doubt, SAARC was created in 1985 with a view to deepening regional cooperation and integration in South Asia. The overarching goal of SAARC was to develop it as a common platform to devise common solutions for eradicating poverty, promoting well-being of the people of South Asia, improving the quality of life of their people, accelerating economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the region. Also, SAARC had aimed to provide all individuals the opportunity to live in dignity and to realize their full potentials. Being sincere now, we have to comfort zone available to appreciate that SAARC has progressed well against its promises. There might be different arguments on why SAARC could not deliver results that we all have aspired. Whatever may be the region, the least developed countries, LDCs, among themselves are the biggest losers. After all, in this black dwarf, I underscore that reviving and reinvigorating intra-regional effort is a must through building on rapport and mutual trust among its members. With a view to propelling trade and further intensifying economic integration among SAARC countries, we have signed on SAFTA in 2004 and decided to bring it into operation since July 2006. Similarly, we have ratified SAARC agreement on trade in service. However, this intra-SAARC trade under SAFTA is not encouraging as anticipated, while SATIS is yet to come into implementation. In view of this, we need to pay focus on how we can best utilize SAFTA and bring SATIS into operation as early as possible. One of the key stumbling blocks in materializing the SAARC Charter is the lack of sufficient financial arrangement, since all countries are competing with limited resources, in particular LDCs. In this regard, SAARC Development Fund SDF has potential leverage to help LDCs and other in SAARC so as to safeguard their SDG-related programs from financial crunch. Like other LDCs and LDCs in South Asia, to lack capacity as well as resources required for implementation of the SDGs. As SDGs mandate, development countries are supposed to allocate at least 0.7% of their GNI as overseas development assistance, ODA, for developing countries, and to ring-fence between 0.15% to 0.2% of the earmarked ODA to LDCs. To make it happen, pressure has to be scaled upon developed countries. Thank you very much. Still, I would like to welcome, and I say thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Mr. Meen Bahadur Vishwakarma, Minister for Commerce, Government of Nepal. Taking the ceremony forward, we have a book launch. The book is a selection of articles presented at the 9th South Asia Economic Summit held in Dhaka. Along with the articles, the book contains a summary of discussions during the event, and I would now like to request our chief guest and all our dignitaries on stage to launch the book. Thank you, distinguished guests. I would now like to invite Dr. Fahima Khatun, Executive Director, Center for Policy Dialogue, Dhaka, Bangladesh, who is also the organizer of the Dhaka Summit, to share a few words on the book.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chief Guest, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As has been said, the 9th South Asia Economic Summit was held in Dhaka. It was organized by CPD and along with the other co-organizers. And this book is a collection of the proceedings of 4 plenaries and 9 parallel sessions, and also papers presented in various sessions, and the speeches at the inaugural and closing sessions. Those who have attended the 9th SAES in Dhaka, held on 15th and 16th October 2016, may know that the inaugural session was presented by none other than the Honorable President of Bangladesh, His Excellency Mr. Abdul Hamid, and also there was Dr. Gauhar Rizvi, who was the special guest at the inaugural session. And at the closing session, we had the privilege to have the presence of our Honorable Speaker of Bangladesh's Parliament, Dr. Shirin Sharmin Chowdhury, and also the State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Shahriar Alam. So this book, we hope that will be very useful for those who are working towards the integration of the South Asia. And this book is also dedicated to one of our very dear friend, Dr. Saman Kelegama, who has left us this year untimely, and who had played a defining role in establishing SAES initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Famida Khatun. It is now an honor to invite Honorable Mr. Gyanendra Bahadur Karki, Minister for Finance, Government of Nepal, for his inaugural address.
Honorable Chairperson of the opening session, Honorable Minister from SAARC member states, Chairman of SAFTI, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure and privilege to attend the 10th South Asia Economic Summit in Kathmandu. I warmly welcome the honorable ministers, and distinguished participants from SAARC member states in our historic city of Kathmandu. I thank the National Planning Commission, the Ministry of Commerce, and the South Asia Watch and Trade, Economic and Environment for convening this summit at a very important time on an extremely important theme. All South Asian countries have set ambitious goals for rapid development. There is a broad agreement now that is process can be helped by deeper regional integration of our economies. I'm confident that this summit looks back at our success and failures, and that it can chart a new course of regional cooperation. Issues of equity and planetary conservation have become as important as our common pursuit of economic prosperity. Nature has been kind to South Asia. While hydropower in Nepal and Bhutan can be a vast source of clean energy, the economic rise of India and the agricultural and industrial growth in Bangladesh and Pakistan can all be a basic for intense regional commerce. Similarly, the strength of Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, Bhutan, Afghanistan into tourism can be harnessed to attract middle-class travelers from all over the world. If we pool our efforts and coordinating our marketing, I'm confident that we can be next global hot spot for human mobility. Although South Asian countries are well suited for greater intra-regional trade, our slow progress is well noted. The two major challenges here are poor connectivity and the presence of non-tariff barriers. There is a new enough know-how and financing to make breakthroughs on both fronts. Low-cost ICT technologies and concessional funds should meet our chronic deficit in infrastructure. Regional cooperation can help us bind together in shared production networks at the lowest possible transaction cost. South Asia is already facing adverse effects of climate change. Every year, we experience large human casualty and the loss of property because of natural disasters. Climate change has complicated our development challenge. It has made planning much more risky, uncertain, and costly. The impact is hardest on the poor. South Asia is home to nearly a quarter of humanity, hundreds of millions of whom we are still very poor. Although we have managed to lower poverty in the past 2 decades, it remains high, and we need a new approach if we are to lower it to the low single digit by 2030. Here, the application of mass social innovation across South Asia, from the use of ICT for service delivery, conditional cash transfers, and the public employment guarantees will go a long way in lowering poverty and narrowing inequality. The Sustainable Development Goals are our shared global compact for development over the next decade. We must regionalize these goals and pursue some of them in a united manner. I am hopeful that this will infuse a new mandate to SAARC and energizes it further. Let us take education as an example. Out all of Nepali students who went abroad for higher level studies last year, only 5% went to colleges in India. In contrast, more than 50% went to Australia and the United States. Only about 1% went to the other SAARC countries. Mr. Chair, please allow me to highlight Nepal's initiatives on regional integration and connectivity in the region. Through the South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation, SASEC, various trade facilitation and transit improvement activities are being implemented under SAFTA. We are shortening the sensitive lists. Cross-border transmission lines with India are already delivering results. They have helped in sharp power cuts in Nepal and opened new economic opportunities. Given the reputation of our natural beauty and hard-working, friendly people, if Nepal can become a country that is fully reliant on clean energy, we can also become a knowledge hub by hosting world-class IT, education, and health institutions from all over the region and beyond. Domestically, these are hopeful times in Nepal. This year, we are in process of implementing the constitution by holding elections across 3 tiers of government, with all levels of government staffed by elected representatives. Our democracy will be enriched and our development will pick up pace. With the decade-long post-conflict political transition coming to an end, there is growing optimism on the economic front. There are slow but certain signs of development visible right here in Kathmandu and all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased that the 10th South Asia Economic Summit touches on several themes that I have mentioned. With 18 plenary and parallel session and about 200 participants, this is very much an intellectual festival. It is my hope that your discussion and insights find their way to the policy world as well. Nepal stands ready to collaborate and cooperate with SAARC countries on any initiative where there is mutual gain. Finally, I welcome all of you again to Kathmandu in a cool but pleasant season. I hope you will find some time to explore parts of our city and make your stay enjoyable and memorable. On behalf of the Government of Nepal, I wish this 10th South Asia Economic Summit is a grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Guest, for your kind remarks. And now for the chairperson's remarks, I'd like to invite Honorable Dr. Swarnim Wagle, Vice Chairman, National Planning Commission, Government of Nepal.
The Honorable Minister for Finance, the honorable ministers from SAARC countries, Dr. Posraj Pandey, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a distinct honor and high privilege for me to chair the opening session of this summit. We debated a lot on whether this was the right time to host this summit in Kathmandu at this particular month, just before the provincial and the parliamentary elections. But I think in the end, we decided that this was the right time, not from the Nepali perspective, but from the South Asian perspective. The South Asian integration process, the SAARC mechanism as a whole, has not quite moved at the pace that many of us would like it to move at. And thematically, with the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals and efforts on the part of many of the countries in the region to adapt and reorient and sharpen their focus of conventional development themes along the lines of the global twin priorities of equity and sustainability, the two themes that we've tried to capture in the major theme of this summit. We have a rich series of sessions planned for you over the next 2.5 days. There are 14 parallel sessions and at least 4 plenaries where distinguished thinkers, policymakers, private sector entrepreneurs will be chairing, giving presentations, giving keynote addresses, and participating as panelists. The range of topics is extremely relevant, we would think, from inclusive growth to trade and investment, the Sustainable Development Goals, climate change, e-commerce, intellectual property, labor and remittance issues, disasters, coping with disasters, clean energy, small and medium enterprises, and we also have an unusual topic of economic measurement as one of the parallel sessions. We have assembled more than 200 experts, as I mentioned earlier. So what we hope is a rich series of discussions, an intense discourse with lots of insights emerging, which can then hopefully travel their way to circles where these things matter, especially in national policy and the regional forums. Now on the issues, the honorable ministers have already touched on almost everything that I might have added, and I anticipated that, so I don't want to dwell too much and repeat the common challenges that we have all been facing. But the lofty aspiration of all the efforts aimed at regional integration in South Asia is to eventually create a common market of about 2 billion people who can live in peace with each other, pursuing ways and means of and become mutually prosperous. But we have not matched this lofty aspiration with concrete steps so far. Even if we may not see a common market in the subcontinent in our lifetime, I think it is our duty to put in place credible building blocks. But we all realize that we in South Asia are a diverse bunch. Bhutan and Maldives and Afghanistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka are smaller than Pakistan and Bangladesh. And of course, India looms large with 1.3 billion. So that asymmetric presence of a few large countries in the region actually distorts the way we often portray the state of our regional integration. The often cited number of 5% being the share of intra-regional trade for South Asia is actually quite misleading, as many people have now recognized. With the exception of India, if all the countries in the region were to double their exports to each other, we would still increase that intra-regional share by just a couple of percentage points. Having said that, we can still do much better, and this is the point of this series of South Asian summits, to nudge policymakers, to keep alive this agenda, the lofty aspiration, as I mentioned earlier. The non-tariff barriers, the exclusion lists, the crippling state of infrastructure, especially in the bordering regions, are certainly areas where we should be making much bigger progress. And many of our barriers are actually policy-induced and man-made. But the opportunities can also be policy-induced and man-made, or human-made, to be politically correct. Now, we need to cohere our project of regional integration with 21st century developments, such as the rise of India and China. Historically, during its industrialization, the UK took 150 years to double its per capita income. The US took 50 years, but both China and India doubled their output per capita in 12 and 16 years, respectively. Unlike the UK or the US, which had less than 10 million people at the time of their takeoff, China and India had 1 billion people each. So what is happening right in our neighborhood is actually a force as powerful as the Industrial Revolution. We must pause to reflect on what this means for shared prosperity in our region. I think we need to intensify a multi-dimensional approach to regional integration. An expansive notion of regional cooperation that goes beyond a mere exchange of tariff preferences is what we need. Such a common approach would include infrastructure related to energy and transport, shared monetary and financial institutions, comparable and standardized regulations, and the movement of labor, easing of the movement of labor across borders. One fundamental principle of regional integration is to augment South Asia's international competitiveness. Regional markets can only be sustainable if they are investment platforms for industries that can participate vigorously in the world market. In this regard, the South Asian Free Trade Agreement has a choice. It could either be a poor man's consortium riddled with sensitive lists and non-tariff barriers, or a means to reorient the subcontinent's economies towards international competitiveness. What next, then, are the avenues we should focus on? I don't want to go too much into detail because these are precisely the themes we'll be talking about over the next 2 days, but let me just list 5 broad agendas. The first is the lowering of the cost of trading. India and Pakistan share a long border and account for 90% of the region's economy, but trade cost between them is double that between China and the United States. And it is cheaper for Sri Lanka to trade with Brazil than with Nepal. This is striking data that came out of the UNSCAP work on trade costs. Over 50% of intra-regional imports are on the sensitive list, shielded from tariff cuts, with no provision in SAFTA to phase them out. I think we have now matured as a region to talk openly about the trade-off between security and economics. We can do better by bringing trade in services into the picture. The potential for intra-regional tourism, education, healthcare, energy, transport, and ICT services is by now proven, and this was something that was emphasized by all the ministers. The second point is the agenda of being much more business-friendly and the agenda of reviving manufacturing. On this, I think India has had an inspiring performance recently in the Doing Business indicators. They were able to jump almost 30 places. And 2 years ago, I remember Prime Minister Modi setting out his reform agenda and mentioning specifically that one of his ambitions would be to climb on the Doing Business ladder quite radically, and this seems to be happening. Our investment regime has not helped intra-regional investment, which stands at less than 4% of total FDI. The draft regional investment agreement has yet to be finalized. The costs and procedures for setting up foreign subsidiaries remain cumbersome. In Nepal, the ban on outward FDI has been in place for the past 50 years. So we will change this, as we have seen that even entrepreneurs from small countries can actually exploit niche competencies in larger markets. It is worrying that developing countries are deindustrializing at levels of income much lower than attained by advanced countries when their share of manufacturing and employment actually peaked. While in the US or South Korea, such a share reached nearly 30% before decreasing, in India, manufacturing employment lost ground after reaching just 13%. The challenge, I think, brings with it an opportunity for us to revive regional and global value chains. Regional production sharing has already become a dominant model of production and exchange in the rest of Asia. It is time for all the countries in the region to catch up. Sectors like textiles, auto parts, electronics, food processing, and pharmaceuticals do carry low-hanging fruits. The third agenda is on connectivity and consolidation of economic corridors. A friend of mine pointed out that the Grand Trunk route linking Chittagong with Kabul existed 2,300 years ago at the time of Chandragupta, but we've since created lots of hurdles to those historical flows. So this is an area where we should be making much bigger progress. The fourth agenda is around the optimal use of surplus energy, and here I think we have a few dedicated sessions on the potential for clean energy to link many of the sub-regions within the South Asia region. The competencies in each of the countries actually complement each other, and there's a big potential, and there are some good positive developments already in place. And finally, we should put in place enabling building blocks for a customs union and leading to a common market. So I don't want to take too much time. I think we have a lively, what I hope will be a lively interaction just after the formal segment of this summit. Kanakmani Dixit will moderate a panel with eminent thinkers from India and Bangladesh and elsewhere. And after this session, after the formal segment is over, we will loosen up a little bit, maybe become a slightly informal, and engage in that favorite South Asian hobby of arguments. So I hope the next 2 days will be very intellectually vigorous and enlightening from a policy perspective. I do hope that you will all enjoy your stay in Kathmandu and do take some time off to explore the surroundings. The beautiful temple, the beautiful stupa of Bodhanath is minutes of walk away, and it has been restored beautifully after the 2015 earthquakes. So I end with those thoughts and do enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Swarnim Wagle, Vice Chairman, National Planning Commission, Government of Nepal. And with this, we come to the end of the opening ceremony. We will have a 10 minutes break for coffee, and then we'll be back with the plenary session 1 with the theme High-Level Dialogue on South Asian Integration, Collapse or Rejuvenation. We have 4 panelists from Pakistan, Nepal, India, and Bangladesh, and our moderator is Mr. Kanakmani Dixit, founding editor, Himal South Asian, Nepal.